right, Saagar, what's on your radar?
Well, it's exactly 50 days till Election Day, and in normal times, this is when things get real. Gotten a slew of likely voter polls, campaigns doubling down on their message, spending money in states that they actually think they might win. They're beginning to cut money from the states where they might say they have a chance, but behind closed doors, they're going to admit the truth. In other words, at this point in the game, campaigns are locked in. That isn't to say that events can't dramatically alter the course of the election. More to say that the inputs that the campaigns can control are locked in while they remain at the mercy of things that are out of their control, like all of us do. And on that front, we are starting to get pretty clear evidence that the fundamental premise of the Trump campaign attack on Joe Biden is not bearing the fruit that it would need to actually swing the election in favor of Donald Trump. Now, you all basically know the line at this point. Joe Biden is a Trojan horse for socialism and the radical left. Now, the way that you know whether a message is resonating or not is not actually if it comes out of the candidate's mouth. It's if it comes out of the mouth of other Republicans organically, who are engaged in very tough fights of their own. Now, in 2016, around this very same time, every single Republican running for office, whether they were corporatists or not, was saying the exact same thing. Hillary Clinton and her family were crooked. It was a devastating attack that encapsulated her personal life, her family's enrichment of themselves, and the policies that she would push should she come into office. This time around, you might hear the Trojan source for socialism attack on the RNC stage. You might hear it on Fox News, but you're not going to hear it out there on the campaign trail organically. We now know this thanks to the sharp eye of National Journal correspondent Josh Kraushaar, who flagged two recent congressional Republican ads which attack their opponents as far left, but they cite Joe Biden as evidence for why they're too extreme. Let's take a listen to both of those.
I'm Ann Wagner, and I approve this message.
Have you seen Jill Shoup's radical Medicare for All healthcare plan? Shoup sponsored it twice. Even Joe Biden opposes it.
Medicare for All is absolutely preposterous. It will eliminate employer-based insurance. You shouldn't have Washington dictating to you. You cannot keep the plan you have.
What would Shoup's plan cost us?
It costs $30 trillion. It's going to raise taxes on middle-class people.
Jill Shoup, too extreme, too radical for Missouri.
Why did Joe Biden attack radical Cara Eastman's extreme healthcare plan?
You shouldn't have Washington dictating to you. You cannot keep the plan you have. Medicare for All is absolutely preposterous.
And what will Cara Eastman's preposterous plan cost?
It costs $30 trillion.
And who will Eastman make pay?
It's going to increase personal taxes.
That's right. We are going to increase personal taxes.
Cara Eastman, too extreme for Joe Biden, way too extreme for Nebraska. NRCC is responsible for the content of this ad.
So in observation, Kraushaar writes, quote, watching these spots, you'd think that Biden was the Republican candidate in the suburban St. Louis district, a traditionally conservative stronghold that backed Trump by a double-digit margin in 2016 and elected right-wing Representative Todd Akin for 6 terms, adding that even Republicans are now implicitly praising Biden in certain districts for his pragmatism as they try to drive a wedge between him and more progressive candidates. Washington Post campaign reporter Dave Weigel also observed that at a recent Trump rally, which if you haven't had the pleasure of attending is always extraordinarily raucous and unlike anything else you'll ever see in American politics, that there was nary an anti-Biden swag being sold to any of its supporters. All of this is a major indictment of the Trump campaign. Literally everything they need to destroy Joe Biden, convince their working class base that he is Hillary or Obama 2.0, is right there for the taking. But they just simply have not leaned into the populist case against Joe, which could cost them dearly on Election Day. Literally in just the last 72 hours, Joe Biden has provided everything the Trump campaign needs to destroy him in November. First, of course, was his disastrous CNN interview with Jake Tapper, which we broke down for you all on Friday. And for those of you who missed it, or as a reminder, Biden defended his vote for NAFTA in the 1990s by blaming President George W. Bush for not implementing the deal properly and claimed that he was later against it despite footage of him in 2007 still defending that trade deal. In another section, Biden was asked by Tapper whether he was naive about voting for China's entrance into the WTO and saying that no American manufacturing jobs would be lost to that country. He decisively just replied, no. Let's take a listen.
The fact of the matter is NAFTA was not the deal that was sold. When Bush said we were going to have enforcement mechanism in NAFTA, they didn't do it. That's why after it passed, And he did not insist on that. I was against NAFTA, and we tried to begin to change it because it didn't keep the deal that was made.
Do you think in retrospect that you were naive about China?
No. Here's the thing. In the context of that, we want China to grow. We don't want to have a war with China. I said to Xi Jinping when you may remember, the president wanted me to spend time with him as vice president. He was going to be president, and he couldn't do it. So I traveled around the world with him. He said, why do you keep saying you're Pacific power? I said, because we are. We are a Pacific power. And if we weren't, you would not have been able to have any stability at all. It's in our interest that China be stable. It's not in our interest China to take advantage of us.
So we have Joe Biden outright lying about his record on NAFTA, refusing to take responsibility for his vote that destroyed hundreds of thousands of Americans' lives. Now you have him refusing to admit he was wrong for a vote that then further cost millions of American manufacturing jobs, led us on the road to being a weak and brittle nation incapable of producing for itself in the worst time of need. What could he possibly say to make things even worse for himself? Well, saying that he was going to keep forever wars going, of course. This was, and that's exactly what Biden did on September 11th of all days to the military newspaper Stars and Stripes. According to Stars and Stripes, quote, Biden said that conditions in Syria, Afghanistan, and Iraq are so complicated he cannot promise a full withdrawal of troops in the near future. Adding, quote, he supports a small U.S. military footprint whose primary mission would be to facilitate special operations against the Islamic State, ISIS, and other terrorist organizations. There you have it, guys. That is Washington speak for absolutely nothing will change abroad. I have closely followed, studied, written about the Afghan war since 2007. I can tell you, every single administration and general since the Bush administration has used those exact same words to justify whatever it is we happen to be doing in that country. Small footprint. We need something to crush terrorism. Things are just so complicated. Conditions-based withdrawals. It's all bullshit. It means one thing. We're never getting out. The gravy train to the Afghans and to the military will never end, and the blood of American soldiers will continue to be spilled. You could run on those two sound bites plus that quote, and you could win 300 electoral votes. And it says a lot about the Trump campaign that not every household in America knows what I just showed you. A few digital ads highlighting it is just not going to cut it. The ethos and the message and the case against Joe has to embody his outright, unending commitment to the status quo. Make America great again meant something in 2016. And today, most people can't tell you what exactly it means. And if that's the case, then it doesn't really mean anything at all. And it's pretty amazing, right, Crystal, to see those ads from those suburban districts citing Biden.
Yeah,
and so
really
if your whole case is to destroy Biden in the suburbs, then the people who are running in the suburbs should be picking up on Trump's rhetoric if it is working. But it's not. And so and those are two different ads, two different districts, two different places across the country with the same message. Being like, even Joe Biden says that this stuff is radical. That's not a good place to be.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting, too, that it's coming from the NRCC, those ads.
They're supposed to get the memo.
That's
right?
the National Committee, right? Exactly. They should have exactly the same data as the Trump campaign, more or less, and they're looking at this and going, they're actually using Joe Biden as like a validator. Yes. I mean, it really is a fascinating dynamic, and it completely exposes how much they've failed to be able to peg this guy as a radical socialist, where it's just nobody believes it. No one's going to believe it. And at the same time, they've spent so much money on absolutely nothing. If they had spent that money driving an actually effective message about Joe Biden, look, even in that case, I think they would still need some balls to bounce their way because of just how failed the coronavirus approach is, as we've been covering here.
You can make it closer.
Yeah, but then you'd be in the ball game, right? You'd have a much better shot. Things would be closer. Maybe a state like Minnesota, where we covered, they've been really trying hard, really trying to pick up Minnesota, which they narrowly lost last time around. It's at a 9-point spread now. It looks very much like it's moving away from them, and it's not going to be in range. You had to, given how polarized the sentiment around President Trump is you really had to rerun an exact replica of the 2016 playbook. And frankly, when Democrats nominated Joe Biden, I was like, oh, they know how to do this because he's a very similar candidate to Hillary Clinton. Like, just roll out that same playbook and you know what to do, and it's not going to be a problem. But they have completely dropped the ball. They haven't been able to land an attack that's effective at all. And then they have no affirmative positive vision on their side. So you end up with just this mush. That thing that there's no merchandise, no anti-Joe Biden merchandise being sold at rallies, that's actually a big deal.
No, it matters a lot. And that's, look, if you've ever been to a Trump rally, every shirt, Hillary for prison, Hillary, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Hillary, Bill, all this
I saw those signs all over the industrial Midwest during 2016, the Hillary for prison signs.
You could see, or go to a Walmart, you'll see plenty of them, right? And then, at the same time, currently, there's no, what's the case against Biden? I really think you could do the same thing. Crooked Joe, you could even use the same nickname, Crooked Joe. You can make it about Hunter, and then you could also attach it to the China policy. You could attach it to NAFTA, and you could talk about the endless wars like I highlighted there in a Stars and Stripes interview. And look, it took me 10 minutes. That was NAFTA clip, the China clip, and the Forever Wars quote to the Stars and Stripes talking about how things are too complicated and we're never going to get out. Trump could say, hey, I tried to get out. Biden won't even try to get out. I mean, look, I'm not saying it's a great case, but it can be made.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing, which is that his political instincts just seem to be gone from this moment. And I know we talked about NAFTA last night, and all the Trump people are going to be like, yeah, but there's one digital ad that's talking about this. That does not matter unless it is blanketed across the airwaves, unless it is actually made the central case of the campaign in every single media spot, every single one. The Biden people are great at this. Even look at that moron, TJ Ducklo, who's our national press secretary. Even whenever he was filibustering on Fox News, he came back to one thing. Donald Trump failed America in coronavirus. Joe Biden will not fail America on coronavirus.
Yeah.
Even if it's terrible spin, all of that, as long as that is hammered into the heads of every Biden surrogate, of every ad, of every per time that Joe Biden's opened his mouth, I think he's going to win the election. And Trump has to make the case that, things didn't exactly go right. But Joe Biden is not just going to fix this. He's going to destroy the entire country while doing it.
And he has to turn his numbers around on coronavirus.
Oh, yeah.
And I just don't even think he can at this point.
No,
and that's the part. There's so few undecided voters left. There's so little time left. And unlike last time around when, the media is still obsessed with Trump, they love the ratings as much as they protest. The media executives love this guy and they love what he does for their numbers. So he was able to drive the news coverage every single week. Now that you have this massive pandemic that is driving the news coverage and he can't just change the channel on his own, it's another massive issue for him. And he has been unwilling to sort of play on the train of where the American people actually are, which is the other issue for him here.
I think that's right.
Coming up on Rising, New York Times published a list of the most powerful people in America and broke them down by race, or at least they attempted to. Zed Jelani weighs in on the findings when Rising returns.